All right. Well, hey, gang. I am putting together a little video on this Monday, September 6th, 16th afternoon to say hi and I guess do a little bit of a check-in. And I also wanted to say some things about this. I started grading the topic and like the research topic, the argument topic that you're going to be working on this semester. And so, everyone submitted these. I think it was last weekend, the previous one. And this was meant to be like your initial kind of dive into some research and come up with some ideas, some possibilities for what you can focus on, this semester, culminating in a kind of like opinion argument that you're going to develop and generate. I want to just kind of step back and think about the class sort of in a broad sense, and then come back and narrow on the assignment. So, I still remember going years back when this class was first proposed, and what we were trying to do is enter into the critical thinking space in the Gen Ed curriculum so that we could get some of that action, because this is a university-wide thing that students have to do, critical thinking. We think that we are pretty good at critical thinking, right? So we created this class a while ago, and it kind of took different iterations, and I helped work on some of those. And then Rachel Allen, some of you might know Rachel Allen, she's been teaching for us for a number of years, and she was sort of tasked with revamping and getting this thing built in an online setting. And I believe we've been doing this now for a couple of years, and the class that you're in right now and taking is largely the result of her efforts, and thank you, Rachel. And one thing that I know is a core kind of spiritual element of this class is the notion that what we want to be doing with our incoming younger students in our department and the school is to kind of start slow, right, in terms of this business of like public argument or debate or public controversies. And, this is the stuff that we really focus on in this department. It's to kind of take it sort of like really step by step, right? And so the idea is to choose some topic, some area of life, public life, that is controversial and that is fractious and where there's lots of difference of opinion, where you could take that, you could dive into the research of that phenomenon and educate yourself, learn as much as you can about as much of the little nuances as you can. And then ultimately, this will culminate in you being a kind of semesters long kind of expert on this topic or this sort of slice of this topic. And then you kind of judiciously weigh in at the end of the semester after your kind of journey of discovery. And the whole kind of spirit of this enterprise is to have people go through this kind of slow learning, developing of your ideas, crafting of your arguments and your opinions that takes, 15 weeks or whatever. And we kind of take it bit by bit. We look at research, and then we look at what is an argument and how does an argument work and how do you put one together, and thinking about audience and fallacies. And we're trying as best as possible to help our younger students. I say younger because it's a 100 level class, and so a lot of you are coming into this class with little other classroom kind of experience. And so it's designed in that kind of intro way, right? And so that's why we're starting very sort of basic. All right, so I'm going through the public topics, the arguments and so on, and then all of your thoughts, and going through your worksheets, and I'm seeing what I feared I might see, and what I saw last semester, and what I should have uploaded this video before we did this exercise, but not to worry. Now, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, and I actually wrote down most of the topics on a sheet of paper, and I have basically two columns here. The first column is these topics will not work very well, and the other column is these topics will work pretty well. And so there were a number of topics that y'all selected that I think will work really well and fit really nicely into what we're trying to do here. But I did also notice that probably the majority, the bulk of the topics were ones that will not work well. And I wanted to just explain why, right? So the one thing that we want to avoid right now at early on in this semester, and anticipating where we're going in this semester with the assignments, the one thing we want to avoid is selecting topics that everyone agrees on, right? That are morally, like, no one can disagree with that. Like gun violence or police brutality, or, mental health, right? Like a lot of mental health challenges out there. I don't think anyone disagrees that this is something that we need to deal with, right? Drugs, the opioid crisis, right? Like I'm seeing what seems to be oftentimes a list of just things I don't like, right? Or things I disagree with in the world. Inflation is another one that keeps coming up. Last semester, I had a student just begging me to insist on, I want to do inflation. And I was like, it's not really controversial, right? Like, what's controversial about inflation? No one likes inflation. Everyone has their story of, I went to go for lunch and I had to spend $75 or whatever. Everyone has their story. Wages have not kept up with inflation the way that they ought to. It's frustrating, but it's not really controversial. Now, there's maybe bits and pieces and elements that we could pull out in terms of what should be the federal government's response to inflation or something like that. But I think we need to be careful about how we're thinking about this journey that we're heading on here. You will get no reward in this class for already knowing what you want to say and already having a passionately held opinion or belief or conviction. So I'm seeing a number of these topics saying things like, I am very pro-choice and I want to do abortion or women's rights. I had at least 2 or 3 women's rights abortion topics. I had 3 police brutality suggestions. I had at least 4 gun violence. I had, the most of them all was mental health, but mental health actually broke down. Some of them are not very good and some of them are actually okay, right? So, and by the way, all I'm thinking about is, can this be the kind of topic that a student can learn something about, potentially change their mind about, and have a really kind of enlightened, dispassionate. Now, I know the word passion, maybe I need to take that out. It's in the assignment description. Choose something you're passionate about or something about wanting to become more informed. I think people get tripped up on the passionate part. We want you to be interested in learning more about this topic. But if your mind is made up, if this is a topic that affects you directly and you hate it, racism is not a topic for this class, right? Like, who agrees that racism is a good thing, right? And we should continue to be racist. So I want to urge you to think, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to just say, this is good, you're good to proceed, or please try again, basically, right? And no one's going to get penalized for not, having the right mindset right out of the gate. No one's going to get penalized for submitting again or doing the next research, the scavenger hunt, for doing that one late. Okay, the main focus here is getting everyone a good topic that they can sink their teeth into for the next, 11 weeks, where there's wiggle room in terms of your own thinking and in terms of your own curiosity, in terms of your own ability to feel a certain way about this topic. I do fear that a lot of you are choosing things based on kind of emotion or based on what I feel is right and wrong. This is not a class where you get to just make the right argument. Yay, I chose, inflation, and then I'm going to say inflation's bad and the federal government needs to do more about it. That's kind of an easy argument to make. We want you to dive into the research, allow yourself to be informed by that body of good quality, reliable sources, and then ultimately make an opinion or make an argument at the end of this semester that may or may not look at all like the one that you think you want to make right now. So the only way that you should proceed with this topic is if you can honestly say to yourself, if you want to do abortion, which I do not recommend doing, it's not because I don't think we need to be talking about it sort of out there, But what we're trying to do is hone our critical thinking skills, hone our reflection skills, our analysis skills, our research skills, our composition skills, right? And some of these topics just crowd out anyone's ability to do those other things well because it's so emotional, it's so immersive, it's so overwhelming, it's so upsetting, it's so disturbing, it's so anger-inducing or whatever, right? A little bit of passion's fine, but like, I am wholeheartedly devoted to this argument. No, thank you, right? Like, please, 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 no. You will not do well on the subsequent assignments. I'm just trying to like sending out an alert to say, I want all of us to do well in this semester. Some of these topics are not going to help you get there, right? So what are the good topics? Well, I wrote them down. There's some really interesting ones. Voting rights for criminals. That's awesome. It's specific, it's narrow, and it actually gets at something that we can sort of talk about. Should criminals have rights? What about reform? What about second chances? But they did terrible things, and on and on and on. I think there's like really, good stuff to say there. Surprised there wasn't more stuff on AI. At least one student wanted to talk about AI. I think there's lots of possibility there. This is a very fresh topic, right? Part of my problem with these other ones, gun violence, police brutality, abortion, drugs, mental health, domestic violence, housing, the housing crisis. I know the housing crisis is a real painful issue, but it's, again, not super controversial. These are all these big emotional topics that like we talk about endlessly in the kind of social media square, but this is a kind of different thing that we're working on here, right? So we need narrower and we need more unique, I think, kinds of topics. So let me continue. AI stuff, pollution crimes. Someone suggested crimes for polluting. Awesome, right? Like that's nice and specific, and it gets at a larger phenomenon, the climate crisis, and some people believe it, some people don't. But what about, the fact that actual pollution can lead to actual damage, and what should we be doing about that? And it's a really good way of thinking about addressing the problem. Censorship. There's all kinds of issues around censorship right now. I'm surprised only one person chose that. Again, it's like no one really agrees that censorship is a good idea, but there's enough wiggle room there where we could make, I think, some useful arguments on both sides. Genetic engineering of babies, I haven't seen that one in a while. It's not super fresh, but it's, in the world of AI and all this kind of, gene manipulation and whatever, there's some interesting stuff there. I study food and I know kind of some of the things they're doing with genes. Vaping, one person chose vaping. It's specific enough. There's some controversy around it. It sort of goes back to like cigarettes or alcohol or some of these older topics. But, part of this, I started to say a moment ago, part of this is like I've been, doing these kinds of classes for many years, and some of these are just like the greatest hits. And it's sort of like, okay, I get why your thoughts go there because these are perennial, recurrent social problems, but I would like us to dig a little bit deeper and find something a little bit fresh, something that's maybe novel, interesting, more of a curiosity. Let me continue. Masculinity, mental health and masculinity. There's lots of mental health stuff, but not enough talking about masculinity. I know we just have shootings here, shootings there. They're always the young guys. They're always male. Almost always male. Some of us think we shouldn't be talking about mental health and masculinity, but I think that's, a very good reason why we should be talking about video games, isolation, younger guys not keeping up to younger girls at the same rate these days. Really interesting stuff in that particular space, right? So mental health is a very big topic. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think you got to take the right approach here. Certain diagnostic tools. Someone mentioned a certain diagnostic measurement and how it favors or doesn't favor what it's supposed to try to reveal and so on. So some of these things are about how you slice them, how you come at them. Let me keep going here. Prison reform. It's not necessarily new, but it's better than police brutality, which by its very assertion, right? The words themselves, police brutality, you kind of know what you're getting in terms of the students' interest in this topic. No one's for police brutality, right? But we can maybe talk about ways of reforming police protocols. Maybe there's stuff to do with technology or training, or maybe it's a matter of resources or recruitment or something like this, right? Someone chose Vegas and walking around Vegas. The fact that this is such a lousy walking city. I think that's a great topic because it's unique, it's specific, it's kind of fresh, and it gets at this whole kind of public infrastructure and like should the state government should be spending money on the public infrastructure, and Nevada is known as a sort of libertarian kind of state where it doesn't throw a lot of money in public works. We see this with mental health stuff and services. We see this with education. We see this with all kinds of public stuff. So walking infrastructure is really interesting. And then there's one on education inequality. I'm not quite sure. I got to go back into that one. But that one's, all the ones that I just mentioned are at least somewhat unique right now. Right now, what we see online and social media over and over again is sort of all of that first column, right? And I'm not saying these aren't real issues, and I'm not saying they aren't important issues. What I'm saying is how we want to be thinking about topic selection for this class is to not just choose something we don't like, or not choose something that we feel righteous about, or that we feel like we know what we want to say and we're just burning to say it. That's not the goal here. Give yourself the opportunity to expand and to evolve into your topic, your research, your conclusions, essentially. All right, we want to take a more scholarly approach with how we're doing things this semester. So if you're feeling yourself having a kind of reflexive or emotional kind of reaction to your topic selection or what you think you're going to be doing in this, I would urge you to think again. I would urge you to try to come up with something that you're a little bit more curious about than inflamed about. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to shame you. I'm not trying to insult. I'm not trying to make fun or anything like that. I understand the context that we're operating in right now. All I'm saying is this class was designed a certain way, and in order for us to have success with the subsequent assignments is we want to make sure that we're choosing our topics in ways that are benefiting ourselves, in the coming weeks and months. And I just saw a lot of repetition around topics that I don't think are going to work terribly well. So hopefully the suggestions that I give you with the better topics can help you get going in that direction. Think about the food system. Try to think beyond just the most recurrent headlines right now. Yes, we're all, worked up about social media. Yes, we're all worked up about the housing crisis and inflation. But try to think about interesting, kind of challenging social phenomenon, issues, tensions, so on, that you would like to kind of maybe learn a little bit more about, that you would like to involve your thinking on. That would be my recommendation. And if you want to throw a few suggestions at me before you resubmit, I'm encouraging many of you to resubmit, because I just think that we're gonna really struggle if we proceed with some of these topics. So I wanted to just sort of talk to everyone, because not everyone is in the same boat here, but I think it's also useful for us moving forward to at least know kind of where I'm coming from and where the class is coming from with how we are going to proceed moving forward. All right, so bear with me as I'm working on deadlines. I have lots of writing projects and deadlines lately, and so I'm usually in my office doing teaching stuff on Wednesdays, and I'm just trying to get caught up on the grading stuff right now. And I saw this pattern, I guess, emerge, and I wanted to talk about it with you. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish going through the topics, and basically I'm going to give you a grade or say, please redo, please resubmit. And again, it's not meant to punish, it's not meant to shame, it's just meant to let's make sure we get the right topic moving forward so that we can have great, successful semesters, all right? So I don't think there's too much else for me to say. This is a big deal, right? Choosing the right topic is going to color everything else that happens in this semester. So that's why I wanted to create a little video, but also just to say hi, and I enjoyed going through your intro videos and kind of meeting you virtually. So I hope you're well. I have some emails I still need to respond to in terms of grades. There was some weirdness in the grading, in the grade book, where assignments that aren't even due yet are showing zeros, right? I'll sort it all out, don't worry. I've graded 2 things so far. I'm going to continue to keep grading. And there was also a deadline discrepancy for one of my sections with the Harvard implicit bias test. I've changed that. So appreciate your patience. Thanks for listening. And let's continue to figure out best possible topics for an awesome semester of learning, research, discovery, and argument crafting. All right, gang? Hope all's well. Talk soon.